Ukraine isn't just grinding down infantry, they're decapitating Russia's technical capabilities. We've selected 5 key pieces of Russian hardware that are being hunted to extinction. The first, the S-400 Triumph, Russia's latest and supposedly best anti-aircraft missile. Price tag, 1.2 billion per battery, typically 8 in a battery. This is the crown jewel of the Russian air defense, supposedly the best in the world, well, according to the Russians. But in the last month alone, we've seen Ukraine's Lazar group use a $500 drone to blind these billion-dollar systems in Belgorod and use other low-cost drones in Crimea. If you can't protect your own radar with an S-400, your impenetrable sky is officially open for business. As the Americans have proven in Venezuela, in Iran, Iran had S-300s and elsewhere. Russian air defences have been proved very weak indeed. So next, Russia's eyes in the sky, its ability to coordinate its air operations, the A-50 Mainstay. Price tag, 330 million. Russia only had about 9 of these at the start of the war. They are the eyes in the sky that coordinate missile strikes, they coordinate fixed-wing air packages going in, they command and control the air forces as they're moving around supporting Russian ground troops. Ukraine has now downed or damaged at least 3, including a precision strike on a repair plant in Novgorod just last week. Russia's literally going blind. They can't build enough of these fast enough to replace the ones that are falling out of the sky. In fact, we believe that their manufacturing lines for these do not exist anymore. And of course, we saw at least one destroyed and possibly another one damaged in the very audacious Operation Spider's Web attack that happened last year. Next, we have the T-90M Proryv. Price tag, 4.5 million per tank. Putin calls this the best tank in the world. It's not. We've seen over 200 T-90Ms visually confirmed as destroyed. They suffer from the same jack-in-the-box flaw as the old Soviet models. One well-placed FPV drone and the turret is launched into orbit like the jack coming out of the box. It's a steel coffin with a PR campaign around it. The T-90M is the one tank that the West feared and why we upgraded many of our anti-tank missile systems, the NLAW Block 1 to the NLAW Block 2. The NLAW Block 1 had a single shaped charged warhead. Scientists believed it would not get through and destroy the T-90M. However, the Ukrainians have proven differently. And we didn't need to upgrade to the Block 2 with 2 shaped warheads because the Block 1 deals with a tank that has got too much PR and not enough armour. Next, we have the Tupolev or Tu-22M3 Backfire. Price tag, 40 million plus a piece. These are the platforms that are used to launch cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities from deep inside Russia. But Ukraine's Operation Spider's Web proved that no airbase is safe. We've seen these supersonic giants burning on the tarmac at Belaya, over 2,700 miles from the border. When you're losing strategic bombers to hobby drones, your deterrence has evaporated. Of course, the Tu-22, the Tupolev 22, is also a nuclear-capable bomber. Its nuclear forces will carry nuclear-tipped warheads. They tend to keep those separate from the forces that are used purely to launch the cruise missiles and the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles at Ukraine. And finally, we have the Skat 450M. Price tag, $400,000. This is a rare one. Russia's answer to stealth reconnaissance. It spots for Iskander ballistic missiles. And by hunting these down, Ukraine is cutting the nerve endings of Russia's long-range precision fire. There are fewer than 20 left in the Russian inventory, and the survival rate for these stealth birds is dropping by the day. There's a common thread that runs between all of these pieces of equipment. They're all old Soviet designs. The experts, the scientists, the engineers, and everything that's behind them, many of them were Ukrainian. And a lot of that expertise doesn't exist in Russia in the same way it existed in Ukraine. And Ukraine is dismantling Russia's oil and gas infrastructure, as we've seen, but it's also dismantling Russia's defense industrial base. The S-400 proven useless in other wars by the Americans and by the West. They're not going to sell many of those anymore. The A-50s, the manufacturing line has closed down. They're losing them. The T-90M proving ineffective and proving to be the jack-in-the-box. The Tupolev 22, a capable aircraft, but it is wearing out and Russia can't get the parts to keep them flying. And of course, when they get into the high-tech, their high-tech isn't high-tech when you get into the details that's in there, because they can't get the components that they need, even if they're being supported by countries like China. Russia's defense industrial base and ability to keep up with the losses that they're achieving is a real weakness. Add that to the weaknesses we're seeing on the front line, and Russia is in trouble. So, what is this? This is Ukraine's fortress belt. This is the ultimate prize in the east of Ukraine. The fortress belt is a heavily fortified defensive line anchored by the major cities of Sloviansk, Kramatorsk and Konstantinivka, and it's roughly 31 miles long. That's about the distance between Washington DC and Baltimore, and is connected by the H20 highway. Before the war, 400,000 people lived in this urban chain. It is the absolute backbone of Ukraine's defense in the Donetsk region. And if Russia takes it, they essentially control the entire Donbas. For 11 years since the first Russian proxy attacks in 2014, Kyiv has poured immense resources into turning these cities into hardened defensive bastions and industrial hubs. Remember, as the peace talks continue in Miami, Putin is asking Kyiv to hand over this critical defensive line in exchange for absolutely nothing. And now, according to the ISW, Russia is trying a massive pincer movement. They are pushing from the northeast around Lyman and trying to threaten into Sloviansk. At the same time, they're trying to push up from the south near Kramatorsk and Konstantinivka to envelop the Ukrainians. But to do this, they need to advance across heavily defended and open ground, and they're getting absolutely shredded in the process. The ISW reports that on March the 19th, just a day after the fog trap disaster, Russian forces launched a massive battalion-sized mechanized assault. This is much larger than the small company-sized attacks we've seen over the winter. Out of a force of roughly 500 Russian personnel involved in this charge, 405 were recorded as casualties. Over 80% of a battalion was wiped out in a matter of hours. The ISW has flat out called this casualty rate unsustainable. And overall, Russian losses right now are running at roughly double the levels we saw over the winter. But we cannot underestimate Russian military commanders' willingness to absorb catastrophic losses. They're adapting, even if out of pure desperation.